Hi, it's Patrick Hutzel from IntensiveCareHotline.com, where we instantly improve the lives for families of critically ill patients in intensive care so that you can make informed decisions, have peace of mind, real power, real control, and so that you can influence decision making fast, even if you're not a doctor or a nurse in intensive care. In the last blog, I talked about part 3 of the 7 things families do who make informed decisions, have peace of mind, are in control, have power, and have influence when their loved one is critically ill in intensive care. You can check out the last blog by clicking on the link below this video. In this week's blog, I want to share with you some feedback from a client. And this week's blog is "My mum died in ICU after a heart attack. I think she could have survived, but my sister and the hospital didn't want her to live." So here I share an email from one of my clients. "Hi Patrick, I had spoke with you and purchased some information and ebook while my mum was in ICU last October. I wasn't able to purchase your unlimited one-on-one counselling, consulting and advocacy service where you talk with doctors, with our family, etc., mainly because I had my family that wasn't on my side. That's another dark story for another time though. I have been following your emails, etc., and felt to share with you what happened in our situation in case it might help you and help others. My mum went to the emergency room with pain, where they found 2 blocked arteries that they were in the process of fixing when she coded in the cath lab after she had a massive heart attack. She was without oxygen maybe for 5 minutes, where they were able to bring her back and put a balloon pump in, sedated her and put a tube down her throat. Otherwise she was healthy and was on no medications, etc. prior to that. This was day 1. By day 5 she's off all of that, and I mean all medications and the balloon pump. Kidneys were fine, heart were fine, blood pressure was fine. Literally all her vital signs were great, but she hadn't woken up yet from the induced coma, as she had just stopped the fentanyl and other medications keeping her in the medically induced coma. Then on day 6 at 8:30 a.m, CAT scan results have been negative. Note, no EEG results on this day, only the CAT scan for the brain. And all we heard was she was a quote-unquote vegetable. She had a massive stroke and a lot of brain damage. She will never walk out of here. No quality of life, etc., etc. I probably called you this day knowing the game they were playing. By 3 p.m. the same day, my mum wakes for the first time, has tears streaming from her eyes and coughing and gagging. As it appeared, she realized that a breathing tube, also known as endotracheal tube, was down her throat, and she was freaking a bit as she was extremely claustrophobic. We talked her down to calm her and told her where she was, etc., and she was back asleep after about 10 minutes. She woke more and more and tracked and moved hands and fingers increasingly the days after. But these days after were absolute hell for me, because I wasn't only fighting off the hospital staff from murdering my mum, but unfortunately my own sister as well, who I think was only interested in the inheritance money from my mother. Day 8 or day 9, I had a neurologist come in from another hospital who graciously came to see my mum and gave me a second opinion that this hospital tried to talk me out of. Still no EEG results, but she did see the CAT scans of the brain. She said she saw no stroke damage, and as a matter of fact it looked like a normal brain to me. Her colleague agreed. Her colleague explained they really needed to see the EEG results, as that is what would show brain activity or no brain activity. They also asked when this EEG was done and while she was sedated, and it wouldn't be accurate. They suggested a second EEG to be done. They would like to see that. They also suggested that she'd be weaned from the breathing machine, as she was breathing on her own and over and above the machine, but needed weaning. They also didn't understand why it wasn't already being done. Those two doctors gave their suggestions and everyone agreed this would be done. The very next day I'm being shown a pulse form that my mum had allegedly signed 1 month prior. That paper was forged by my sister, and that's a whole nother story. But this is where I went to court and got an emergency temporary conservatorship over my mum. I got it on a Friday and it expired the following Tuesday. There I had this temporary conservatorship and my mum was full care. Patrick, the amount of medications they have her by Friday evening was sickening. 3 different antibiotics plus Lasix, morphine and Dilantin, or also known as phenytoin, and the heart medicine like adrenaline, noradrenaline and so forth, and of course food and water. I didn't know it was happening while it was being done, as they purposefully didn't tell me. You have to understand, I was trying to oversee my mum while at the same time deal with the legal side of things. Unfortunately, I couldn't be at 2 places at once. They still weren't weaning her, as they said, it's too dangerous and she's full care and it's being litigated. It's all BS. I tried having her removed from that hospital, but they stopped me doing that and so forth. They had an excuse for everything. If I had had the money, I would have called you to help me at this point, as my lack of knowledge I found they took full advantage of. She didn't need any of those medications, and I believe we're giving her so that to compromise her system and inhibit her breathing. At this point, I knew they lied about the CAT scans and her results, and they needed her gone and dead, as she was a liability to the hospital and the ICU. I have all her records if you would like to see them. I do know they disappear whenever they want, so who knows if the records are accurate. A second EEG was ordered, but when they came inside the room to do and hook her up, 5 minutes later they are gone out of my mum's room, and the order never existed after that, and no explanation was given why it was cancelled. I found out later my sister did that. It's just all evil. I lost control on the 19th day and my sister had the plug pulled. She was breathing on her own, but then my sister had them give her morphine and she stopped breathing within 5 minutes. They used the power of the pulse form. Nobody in their right mind who understands the nature of that pulse form would give control to the doctors rather than their family. People don't know what they are signing. The euthanasia groups are behind those forms. Although our story didn't end well and my mum unnecessarily died, I hope my story could help make others aware what the hospitals are doing because of money and greed. Thank you for all you do, Patrick. Keep doing what you're doing. Sincerely, from Lindy. And if you've watched this so far, check out my one-on-one counseling, consulting and advocacy options on the top of the website, so you don't get in a situation like Lindy does, like she just described. So here's my response to Lindy. Hi Lindy, I am very sorry to hear the situation that you went through with your mother in ICU, which ultimately led to her tragic death. Reading my free blog is great, and looking into our ebooks gives you great advice too. Both our free blog, free email newsletter give you all the answers and advice you're looking for if you're prepared to spend the time that it takes to read and digest the information that is freely and readily available. However, it is by no means a substitute of engaging my unlimited one-on-one counseling, consulting and advocacy service. Talking to me one-on-one is really the shortcut and gives you the results you want, need and deserve very quickly in those life or death decisions. With my insider knowledge of having worked in intensive care for nearly 20 years in 3 different countries, where I literally worked with thousands of critically ill patients and their families, and where I also worked as a nurse unit manager in intensive care for over 5 years, will literally give you an unfair advantage because I know the system and intensive care so well. With my one-on-one advice, counselling, consulting and advocacy service, you will get results very quickly, and my hundreds of case studies that are freely available on my website have proven this. Can I save lives? I probably can't in all situations, even though I have helped saving lives for many of my clients who had loved ones in intensive care on the brink of dying over and over again. I would never promise that I can save lives, but I can, at the bare minimum, help you ask the right questions, buy your loved one critical time by negotiating and positioning your loved one's care and treatment so that you will get the best care and best treatment for your loved one. That's my specialist skill. Asking the right questions, knowing all the fine details in intensive care that matter, including negotiating and talking to intensive care teams as a health professional and advocate, will give you the results that you want, need, and deserve. I would have strictly advised you against PULSE, as PULSE is just helping hospitals and intensive care units manage their beds and their patient flow by basically killing patients. It's not really designed to help patients or families. I cannot comment on any family dynamics, but I will suggest you have a look at some other articles, videos, and resources for further reading about family dynamics. Again, for example, the 7 things families do who make informed decisions, have peace of mind, control, power, and influence whilst their loved one is critically ill in intensive care is a blog post that I wrote a while back, and you can have a look there. I'll put a link below this video to this blog post because that'll help you dealing with family dynamics. But even if you are dealing with obstructive family members in such a life or death situation, you still want to engage my one-on-one unlimited clinical consultant and advocacy services because you still want to make informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power, and influence, and increase and maximize the chances for your mum, dad, spouse, sister, brother, and so forth. I am glad to hear that you have access to the medical records, and me and my team can help you to review the medical records in order to find out what exactly happened and if you can file a medical negligence or a medical malpractice claim. Thanks again for your feedback. So, how can you become the best advocate for your critically ill loved one? How can you make informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power, and influence quickly whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care? You get to that all-important feeling of making informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power, and influence when you download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn quickly how to make informed decisions, get peace of mind, real power, and real control, and how you can influence decision making fast whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Your free Instant Impact Report gives you in-depth insight that you must know whilst your loved one is critically ill or is even dying in intensive care. Sign up and download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn how to speak the secret intensive care language so that the doctors and the nurses know straight away that you are an insider and that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care. In your free report, you will also discover how to ask the doctors and the nurses the right questions. Discover the many competing interests in intensive care and how your critically ill loved one's treatment may depend on those competing interests. how to eliminate fear, frustration, stress, struggle, and vulnerability even if your loved one is dying. You get 5 mind-blowing tips and strategies helping you to get on the right path to making informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power, and influence in your situation. You will get real-world examples that you can easily adapt to your and your critically ill loved one's situation. How to stop being intimidated by the intensive care team and how you will be seen as equals. You will get crucial behind-the-scenes insight so that you know and understand what is really happening in intensive care and how you need to manage doctors and nurses in intensive care, and it's not what you think. Thank you for tuning into this week's blog, and I'll see you again next week in another update. Make sure you also check out our Your Questions Answered section, where I answer your questions or simply send me an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com with your questions. Or you can call me, find international phone numbers on the top of the website. Also, check out our ebook section where you get more ebooks, videos, and audio recordings, and where you can also get one-on-one counseling, consulting, and advocacy with me via Skype over the phone and via email by clicking on the email and phone counseling and consulting tabs on the top of the website. This is Patrick Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com, and I'll see you again next week in another update.